Joining us now is the head of a super PAC allied with the Senate Majority Leader. Steve Law is with us right now. Thanks so much for being with us, sir. Look, the Washington Post reports that your PAC is going after Bannon and, quote, will attempt to link him to white nationalism to discredit him and the candidates he will support. So what do you get out of attacking Steve Bannon?
Well, first of all, notwithstanding Steve Bannon's volunteer publicist at the Washington Post, our concern about Steve Bannon is really just limited to this, and that is that candidates who get wrapped around him will have to answer for his toxic views, things that he said, his associations with the alt-right, when Democrats make him the star of their attack ads next fall. That's our concern, and that's simply what we want to make sure that Republican candidates know what they're getting if they sign up with him or get closely too allied with him.
One thing that's interesting, Steve, is that you're not attacking the president directly. And Tom Coburn, the former Republican senator of Oklahoma, put it interestingly this morning in the New York Times, quote, "We have a leader who has a personality disorder, but he's done what he has actually told the people he was going to do, and they're not going to abandon him." That doesn't mean told the party exactly what they want to hear, but the people vote for the party, as you know. Is that a reason why you are not going after the president on this one? Because, you know, he and Bannon are like that.
Our goal is to help advance the president's agenda, and one of the things we want to do is elect more Republicans to the Senate who will do that. I mean, I think there's a wildly blown out of proportion notion of a Republican civil war, and I'll give you an inside look of what it really looks like. 2 days ago, the Majority Leader of the U.S. Senate, Mitch McConnell, escorted the President of the United States to the Senate Republican Policy Luncheon, where the President received an extended and warm standing ovation for the work that he's done on judges, on deregulation, on the nomination and the confirmation of Justice Gorsuch. There really is an incredibly unified effort right now to try to get tax reform done, which I think we will achieve at the end of the day. And what you have that's distracting attention is the Steve Bannon sideshow here. You have individual fights with individual members, mostly personality driven, but what's mostly going on is a very unified front to try to get progress in the president's agenda.
You call it the Steve Bannon sideshow, but you're in that ring right now, right? In Nevada, for instance, you're talking about that race, one of the candidates he's supporting there in the Republican primary, Danny Tarkanian, and you sent out a tweet which included a headline, very controversial, which I'm praying that we have right now. It says, anti-Semitic Trump campaign, anti-Semitic Trump campaign CEO Steve Bannon, not a big fan of whiny brat Jews, ex-wife says. So you guys are tweeting that out about Steve Bannon. Let's break that down for a second. First of all, to be clear, do you think that he is a white nationalist and anti-Semite?
Well, he's got a long record of saying things that are very troubling. He has publicly attacked the integrity of the Catholic Church. Court documents, which that article references, include maligning Jewish people. He has insinuated there's something wrong with too many Asians running tech firms in Silicon Valley. There's a huge amount of what he stands for and talks about, and the movement that he's aligned with, which is very racially charged, and most Americans, including the vast majority of Republicans, completely reject that out of hand.
So the president doesn't reject him, though, out of hand at all. He was the chief strategist in the White House. They still talk on the phone a whole lot. The president hasn't really fought back against the candidates that Steve Bannon is supporting right now. So what does it say about the president if all of those things you say about Bannon are true?
Well, I think there are two very significant facts to keep in mind. First of all, Steve Bannon was summarily fired from the White House a few months ago, I think largely because he took credit for things that this president was actually responsible for and sat around and didn't do a whole lot. But the other thing that's really important is just a week ago, the president endorsed 3 candidates that Steve Bannon had targeted for primary challenges. And so I think at the end of the day, when we look back at this, I'm not actually all that concerned about Steve Bannon. What I am concerned about is candidates getting aligned with him in such a way that they have to answer for these toxic things that he's said and done in elections next fall. I think at the end of the day, we're going to look back at this and see this was largely the creation of Steve Bannon's ego, and as I said, a few volunteer publicists serving the D.C. press corps who like to cover a fight and who like to talk about this issue.
But it's a fight, as John made the point that you're invested in. Quickly before you go, what is the, or is there a battle for the soul of the Republican Party right now, in your opinion?
I actually think the party is truly quite unified. I was looking at some headlines just this morning. You know, senators rally behind Trump and his agenda. There's a roll call story out today that despite the distractions, Republicans in the Senate are working together to pass tax reform. There's tremendous unity behind tax reform, behind deregulation. We passed a bill that holds the VA accountable after 8 years of Democratic neglect. I think there's actually underneath the surface, and when you strip away, you know, these kind of sideshows that people are very focused on, a lot of unity of purpose, both to get things done this year and next year, and then to increase our Senate majority next year, which I think we will do.
We'll watch. Stephen Law, thank you.
Thanks so much for having me on.